You spend the whole day doing almost nothing, and somehow you still feel tired. You wake up already drained. You look at the messages you haven't answered, the tasks you keep delaying, the room you keep promising yourself you'll clean, the life you keep telling yourself you'll finally get together. And somewhere in your mind, a quiet voice says, "You're just lazy." But what if that voice is wrong? What if you are not lazy? What if your mind has simply been carrying too much for too long? Because laziness is when you don't want to care. Emotional exhaustion is when you care so much for so long that something inside you shuts down. And the hardest part is that from the outside, both can look the same. Lying in bed, avoiding responsibilities, not answering people, losing motivation, doing the bare minimum, but underneath the surface, they are not the same thing. One is a lack of willingness, the other is a lack of emotional fuel. So before you call yourself weak, lazy, or broken, here are 7 signs that you may not be lazy. You may be emotionally exhausted. 1. You don't feel rested, even after resting. You sleep, but you don't wake up restored. You lie down, but your body still feels heavy. You take a day off, but your mind never really stops working. And this is one of the clearest signs that what you need is not just more discipline. It may be recovery, because emotional exhaustion does not always come from doing too much physically. Sometimes it comes from feeling too much silently, from constantly managing your emotions, from pretending you are okay, from worrying about the future, from replaying the past, from being strong for people who never ask how heavy it is. So you rest your body, but the part of you that is tired is deeper than the body. It is the part that has been holding everything together, the part that keeps saying, "I'll deal with this later." The part that keeps swallowing pain because life still expects you to function. And that is why a full night of sleep may not fix it, because your exhaustion is not only physical, it is emotional. 2. You used to care. This is important. A lazy person usually avoids effort because they do not want to be bothered. But emotional exhaustion often happens to people who used to care too much. You used to have goals. You used to have energy. You used to imagine a future. You used to be the person who tried. Maybe you were responsible. Maybe you were high-achieving. Maybe you were the one people could count on. Maybe you pushed yourself again and again, even when you were already tired. And now, you look at the same things that once mattered, and you feel almost nothing. Not because you never cared, but because you cared until your mind learned that caring was dangerous. Caring meant pressure. Caring meant disappointment. Caring meant trying hard and still feeling like it was never enough. So one day, something inside you stopped reaching. Not because you became lazy, but because your nervous system started protecting you from more pain. This is what people often misunderstand. Sometimes, losing motivation is not a character flaw. Sometimes, it is grief. Grief for the version of you who used to believe things would get better faster. Grief for the energy you used to have. Grief for the person you were before life became so heavy. 3. Even small tasks feel strangely overwhelming. You look at a simple task, replying to a message, making a phone call, cleaning one corner of your room, opening an email, taking a shower, and logically, you know it should not be that hard. But emotionally, it feels enormous, so you delay it. Then you feel guilty. Then the guilt makes the task feel even heavier. Then you avoid it again, and slowly, your life becomes filled with tiny unfinished things that silently accuse you. This is one of the cruelest parts of emotional exhaustion. It turns small tasks into emotional threats, not because the task itself is impossible, but because everything attached to the task feels too heavy. The shame, the expectation, the fear of failing, The feeling that even if you finish this one thing, 10 more things are waiting behind it. So you freeze. And people may look at you and think, why can't you just do it? But they do not see the invisible weight behind it. They do not see how much energy it takes to begin when your mind already feels defeated. They do not see that sometimes the problem is not the task. It is the emotional pressure wrapped around the task. 4. You avoid people, even people you love. You see a message from someone you care about. And instead of feeling warmth, you feel pressure. You want to reply. You really do. But you don't have the energy to explain yourself. You don't have the energy to sound normal. You don't have the energy to be present. So you tell yourself, I'll answer later. Then later becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes a week. And now, the guilt is even worse. So you avoid the message completely. Not because you don't care about them, but because caring about people also requires energy. It requires attention. It requires emotional availability. And when you are emotionally exhausted, even love can feel like a demand. Even kindness can feel like something you must perform. Even a simple conversation can feel like another place where you have to pretend you are okay. This is why emotionally exhausted people often disappear quietly, not dramatically, not because they want attention, but because they don't know how to say, I care about you, but I have nothing left in me right now. And because they cannot explain it, they withdraw. Then they feel ashamed for withdrawing. Then the shame makes them withdraw even more. 5. You feel numb more often than sad. People often imagine emotional pain as crying, breaking down, or falling apart. But sometimes pain looks like nothing. No tears, no anger, no dramatic collapse, just emptiness. A strange distance from your own life. You watch the days pass, but you don't fully feel inside them. You laugh, but it feels automatic. You talk, but it feels like you are performing. You do what needs to be done, but a part of you is somewhere else. This numbness can be confusing, because you may think, if I were really struggling, I would feel more. But numbness is not the absence of pain. Sometimes, numbness is what happens when pain has been present for too long. The mind lowers the volume. It disconnects. It creates distance. Not because you are cold, not because you are ungrateful, but because feeling everything at full intensity would be too much. So if you feel numb, it does not mean there is nothing wrong. It may mean something inside you has been trying to survive quietly for a long time. 6. You are tired of needing to try. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from effort without relief. Trying to improve, trying to heal, trying to be patient, trying to be better, trying to stay positive, trying to understand yourself, trying to keep going. At first, trying gives you hope. But after a while, if nothing seems to change fast enough, even hope starts to feel exhausting. You become tired of starting over, tired of promising yourself that this week will be different, tired of watching yourself fall back into the same patterns, tired of reading advice that makes sense, but somehow does not reach the part of you that is hurting. And this is when people often mistake exhaustion for laziness. They see that you stopped trying, but they do not see how many times you tried before you stopped. They do not see the private battles, the silent restarts, the nights where you told yourself, tomorrow I'll do better. The mornings where tomorrow felt exactly the same. Sometimes people stop trying, not because they don't care, but because trying has started to feel like another way to fail. 7. You are harder on yourself than anyone else would be. When you are emotionally exhausted, you often don't give yourself compassion. You attack yourself. You say things to yourself that you would never say to someone you love. You're useless. You're wasting your life. Everyone else can handle life. Why can't you? You're falling behind. You're a burden. And the tragedy is that you think this harshness will motivate you. You think if you shame yourself enough, maybe you will finally move. But shame does not create real energy. It creates fear. And fear may push you for a while, but eventually it burns you out even more. You cannot hate yourself into becoming whole. You cannot insult yourself into feeling safe. You cannot punish your mind into healing. If your inner voice has become cruel, that is not discipline. That is pain speaking in the language of control. And maybe the first step is not forcing yourself to do more. Maybe the first step is asking, why am I so exhausted in the first place? So, are you lazy? Maybe sometimes. Everyone avoids things sometimes. Everyone procrastinates. Everyone has moments where they choose comfort over responsibility. But if you used to care, if you want to do better, but something inside you feels frozen, if rest does not restore you, if small tasks feel heavy, if you avoid people because you have no emotional space left, if you feel numb, guilty, and disconnected from yourself, then maybe laziness is not the real story. Maybe your mind is tired. Maybe your body has been living in survival mode. Maybe you have been carrying old pressure, old fear, old disappointment, and old pain for so long that your system finally said, I can't keep doing this. And if that is true, then what you need is not more self-hatred. You need honesty. You need gentleness. You need support. You need to stop treating your exhaustion like a moral failure. Because emotional exhaustion is not weakness. It is a signal that something inside you needs care, not punishment. And healing does not always begin with a dramatic life change. Sometimes it begins quietly, with one honest sentence, I am not lazy, I am tired. And then another, I deserve to understand why. And then one small act that does not come from shame. Drinking water, opening the curtains, answering one message, taking one shower, asking for help, resting without insulting yourself for needing rest. Not because these things fix everything, but because they remind you that you are still here, still human, still worth caring for, even when you are not productive, even when you are behind, even when you don't feel like yourself. You are not broken because you are tired. You are not worthless because you are struggling. And you are not lazy just because the world cannot see how much you have been carrying. Sometimes the pain beneath your stillness is not laziness, it is exhaustion, and it deserves to be heard.